Sicily, the largest island in the Mediterranean, is the most diverse region in Italy. A land of gods and natural forces, and a place of ancient cultures. Throughout the history of Sicily, there have been many battles, rulers, cultures, and religions. Prior to Roman rule, both the Greeks and the Carthagians fought against each other. Later came the Arabs and the Normans. So a labyrinth of historical drama gradually emerged. Our journey begins in the northeast of the island. Catania is Sicily's second largest city and has been strongly influenced by earthquakes and also the volcanic activity of Mount Etna. Therefore, only a few historical remnants have survived. However, after each disaster, the city was rebuilt. The result is a Baroque city, dominated by fascinating sights, full of character and charm, ruins alongside elegance, a place of nostalgia. It is believed that Greek settlers from Chalkidiki founded this city, that some centuries later was conquered by the Romans. Later, the Arabs brought it a new wave of prosperity. The Normans followed, and Emperor Friedrich II had a fortress built here. But the Spanish monarchy that followed found it almost impossible to protect the city from pirates. Thus, the city's economy declined, until the Spanish kings of Aragon brought it newfound prosperity. But perilous times were not too far away. In 1669, lava from Mount Etna's main crater flowed through the city, and 24 years later, an earthquake virtually destroyed it completely. Yet it was once again rebuilt. The city's fortified Norman church was rebuilt and enlarged. It was also given a glorious Baroque facade. The Piazza del Duomo was created, the center of Baroque Catania, with a fountain of Roman elephants made of black lava, plus an Egyptian obelisk. Sicily's first university was founded by the Spanish monarchy that moved its royal court to the east coast of the island in the 15th century. Colorful markets highlight the real life of this fascinating city. A wonderful experience. Here, the Italian way of life can be seen at close hand, and the market traders tend to be quite vocal. Both the city's park and teatro were dedicated to the opera composer Vincenzo Bellini, the city's most famous son. The sea has always been of great importance to the city of Syracuse. The Greeks arrived by boat and created a settlement here. They laid the foundations of Sicily's future prosperity. The attractive historical center of the old town is located on the island of Ortigia. Devastating earthquakes destroyed much of the Norman predecessor of today's cathedral. Since then, its facade has been completely rebuilt. In the course of the transformation of the temple into a Christian basilica in the 6th century AD, some sections of the Greek sanctuary were integrated with the church. The island is the historical center of the town, and a settlement existed here in 734 BC, prior to the arrival of the Greeks. Syracuse gradually grew into a powerful military state. Following a 2-year siege in 212 BC, the Romans succeeded in conquering the metropolis. Much of its history lies beneath the ground. The catacombs of the Santa Lucia district are the finest outside Rome. Several dark corridors lead through various ancient Christian burial places. Today, there are only the ruins and splendid columns of the town's first cathedral that date back to the 6th century and also to Byzantine times. Throughout its history, the basilica has been severely damaged by war and the Great Earthquake of 1693. Today, it's difficult to imagine how large this city once was. An audience of up to 15,000 were accommodated on the steps of the Teatro Greco, one of the most beautiful theatres of antiquity. The grotto is a wonder of acoustics. Even the most gentle whisper can be heard here. Legend has it that the tyrant Dionysius used this phenomenon to eavesdrop on his prisoners. Much of Syracuse's history can be seen close to the periphery of the town, on the top of a hill that the Greeks named Temenite. But it's likely that the work of the archaeologists will continue here for some time to come. A boat trip through a papyrus forest on the periphery of the city is a reminder of an ancient legend. The nymph Kaiana attempted to hinder Hades, who planned to rob Kore. As punishment for this, she was transformed into a spring within the papyrus forest. Noto, a charming town with around 20,000 inhabitants. It's one of the most beautiful enclosed Baroque towns in Sicily. However, many of Noto's historic buildings have been neglected for many years and are thus in somewhat less than perfect condition. The Cattedrale di San Nicolo also fell into disrepair as a result of continued neglect, and this caused both its dome and part of its roof to collapse in 1996. Despite the extensive restoration work of recent years, many of Noto's buildings in the old part of town still leave much to be desired. Yet it was a natural catastrophe that first led to the Baroque and highly artistic design of the town. The devastating earthquake of 1693 destroyed the original town of Noto and left it in ruins. Construction of the new town took almost 100 years, until at the end of the 18th century, most of its buildings had been rebuilt. In addition to the geometrical design of its streets, the remarkable architectural harmony of the town has been created by much use of ochre-coloured sandstone. The elite were divided from the working classes, the latter having been forced to live in the area below the beautiful Baroque town of today. Yet perhaps it is the romantic atmosphere caused by its slow decay that makes this Baroque Sicilian jewel so intriguing. "10 kilometres inland is Noto Antica. A mighty city gate and wall are impressive evidence of this city that was destroyed by a powerful earthquake. It is located on a high plain between two canyons. The privately owned train, the Ferrovia Circumetnea, travels around Mount Etna, from Catania to Riposto. A couple of kilometers outside Catania, there are vast fertile fields. In the background is the mighty and over 3,000-meter high Mount Etna, one of the most active and famous volcanoes in the world. Randazzo is well worth a visit. Although the small village of Randazzo is located only 15 kilometers from the volcano, the village has been miraculously spared the destructive might of its lava. The houses radiate a unique charm. Many of the town's historic buildings are built of lava. Close by, and at the end of some beautiful lanes, is Randazzo's Norman Cathedral. Both farmland and wilderness blend into each other. The founding of this region's farming settlements dates back to ancient times. The next stop is the station at Lingua Glossa. The name of this village, which translated means large tongue, refers to the stream of lava that Etna left here in 1634. Lingua Glossa was first mentioned in Norman times. As it gradually meanders on a single track to a higher altitude, the train travels past agricultural land in which both vines and citrus fruit are grown. Most of the trains of the Ferrovia Circumetnea date back to the 1950s and have put in many years of good service. The fact that the gates are still lowered manually adds even more character to the experience of travelling on the Ferrovia Circumetnea. The trains travel at a leisurely speed. For the 114-kilometre journey, the narrow-gauge railroad takes a total of 3.5 hours. Riposto is the terminal of this nostalgic train journey. The former fishing village has some interesting historic buildings and has managed to retain its original character despite increasing tourism. proud and mighty volcano rises above eastern Sicily. Mount Etna, the largest volcano in Europe, is the undisputed ruler of this fascinating Mediterranean island. As the temperature begins to rise, the lower slopes are transformed into blossoming, fertile meadows. During the ascent, we travel past various of Etna's vegetation zones that at their highest point of around 3,370 meters add to its imposing appearance. The snow on the summit region of Etna obscures the fact that deep within the volcano is an unimaginable natural furnace with a temperature of around 1,000 degrees Celsius. Of course, it's difficult to predict for how long the newly built cableway will survive in this unpredictable environment. In good weather and during times of low volcanic activity, it's possible to travel by four-wheel drive bus to reach Etna's more recently created lava fields. The final few meters to a small mountain cabin must be undertaken on foot. Even though the volcano is active throughout the year, eruptions are still relatively rare. The last large eruption was in 2002. It's hardly surprising that the people of ancient times believed they could see divine forces within the fascinating spectacle of volcanic eruptions. It is particularly at night that one can witness one of the most amazing natural spectacles in Europe, when the surrounding scenery is illuminated by the fiery mountain. After the Romans came the Byzantines. They made this village the center of Byzantine Sicily, until it was plundered and destroyed by the Arabs. Taormina is situated on a rock high above the Ionic Sea, and the Teatro Greco features the breathtaking Mount Etna. The theatre was built out of the stone of Monte Tauro in the 3rd century AD, and 500 years later it was enlarged by the Romans for gladiatorial battle. The old town ended at Porta Messina, whose medieval palaces and villas have been preserved right up until the present day. For many years, Taormina has been Sicily's main holiday resort, and each year attracts hordes of tourists. In centuries past, its mild climate and excellent location attracted the nobility. But today, mass tourism rules the day, and a cable car makes it easy to travel between the coast and the mountain town. The coastline is very pleasant, but its water quality is not too good. journey to the north coast travels through the splendid Nebrodi Mountains that consist mainly of soft clay, marl and sandstone. Here there are wonderful views of mountain summits and deep valleys. To the south of the mountain landscape lies the snow-covered Mount Etna and the Someto and Alcantara rivers, a natural oasis. Winding and narrow mountain roads lead higher. Rounded mountaintops and dense forest have dominated this landscape since antiquity. Remote roads lead to small and picturesque mountain villages. This is a tranquil area where time seems to have stood still. Even today, few tourists travel to this remote mountain world that since 1993 has been a protected area. Cefalu is popular with tourists. Charming old houses located in a bay with sandy beaches and colourful fishing boats. The cathedral was built whilst under Norman rule. Its twin towers are an impressive sight and make it look more like a fortress than a cathedral. The cathedral was originally designed as a burial place for the Norman monarchy, but it took so long to build it that they were instead buried in Palermo Cathedral. "16 ancient pillars support the ceiling, and in the altar room is an impressive mosaic of Christ as judge of the world. The Arabian laundry is reminiscent of earlier times, a public washing place that was used up until the 20th century. A journey to Modoni, the mountainous inland of Cefalu, is an absolute must. The local women wear traditional clothing at certain festive times of the year. This small mountain village is set amid a green mountain landscape and fertile meadows, a picture of tranquility and silence. The Modoni Mountains are known as the Sicilian Alps. The Pizzo Carbonara is the island's second largest mountain. The forests at the foot of these mountains have the largest range of flora and fauna in the entire Mediterranean area, a paradise for botanists and walkers alike. This 77,000-hectare area has been protected since 1989 to the benefit of both nature and the people who come here. The winding road leads to further mountain villages. Many of them were created by the Romans, and the Arabs and Normans enlarged them for the security of the inland area. Throughout the centuries, the simple villages of this region have gradually helped to form this landscape by way of agriculture, farming and cattle breeding. Nature has always been a part of life here. Yet in spite of the harshest conditions, man has always found a way of cohabiting with nature. (1,147 meters above sea level), Petralia Soprana, or Upper Petralia, is the highest village in the Modone region. It has retained its atmospheric medieval character. The winding mountain road travels still higher, and the mountain slopes seem to have become even more green and fertile. A natural paradise within the mountains of Sicily. A remote paradise. Due to the splendor of a truly golden epoch, the city of Agrigento is one of the most well-known and most visited places in Sicily. At the highest point of the medieval town is the Duomo. The Baroque stucco and pseudo-cupola of the exquisitely decorated presbyterium is in wonderful contrast to the wooden ceiling that dates back to the 16th century. Throughout the centuries, the cathedral has undergone many transformations. It is believed that the Normans built this house of God on the site of a former Zeus temple. Under King Roger II, trade with Africa flourished. But when later the Arabs were driven away, the city's economy suffered. The picturesque center of medieval Agrigento leaves an indelible impression on all those who come here. From the Via Retenia, a small street leads to the former religious center of the town, the San Spirito Church. The facade of the church, that dates back to the 13th century, blends well with its surroundings. The nearby 13th century Cistercian monastery is one of the oldest and most beautiful religious buildings in Sicily. The abbey was founded by the wealthy and influential nobility. The impressive architecture of bygone times is reflected in the ruins of the slowly decaying monastery. Valle dei Templi, the Valley of Temples, contains the sacred sites and ruins of the ancient city of Agrigento that is situated close to Agrigento. 1,000 years of history. Archaeologists have made numerous remarkable discoveries here. A total of 140 glass cabinets contain numerous objects that cover the complete historical development of the Greeks, the Romans, and the Byzantines. Greek settlers founded the ancient city of Agrigento in 581 BC. Almost 100 years later, the aspiring metropolis attained its first great flowering period under the tyrant Teron. The military victory over the Carthagians introduced much prosperity to the city. The ruins of the Zeus temple are in stark contrast to the modern high-rise settlements of Agrigento that are situated on the opposite side of the valley. Huge stone structures known as terramone once supported the temple's framework. "25,000 Carthaginian prisoners of war worked on the construction of the Zeus temple, and ironically, it was Carthaginian soldiers who subsequently destroyed the temple." In 1923, archaeologists raised several of its ancient columns. Within the former subterranean canals of the neighbouring Villa Odrea, there are various early Christian graves that can be visited in the villa's garden. The majestic Concordia Temple dates back to 425 BC. It's one of the most well-preserved sanctuaries of ancient Greece. On the highest point of the temple hill is the Hera Sanctuary. From here, there's a good view of the Valley of the Temples. Heraclea Minoa was often involved in border conflicts as it lay between Selinunte and Agrigento on the frontier between Carthage and Greece. The ruins of the Greek settlement are situated on the white shining plateau of Capo Bianco, on one of Sicily's most beautiful coastlines. The remains of a city wall, a number of Hellenistic and Roman dwelling houses, as well as an amphitheatre, are still to be seen in this settlement that was destroyed in the 1st century BC. It is believed that this ancient village derived its name from King Minos, who was killed while following Daedalus here. Amphora, stone heads and other precious finds are exhibited in a museum that is located on the excavation site. Proudly and majestically, the E-Temple that was originally built in honor of the Greek goddess Hera rises up from the meadows of Selinunte. For several centuries, little was visible of the once important city of Selinus, that was situated on the border of the former Greek Empire. It was almost lost forever. The history of ancient Selinus began in around 650 BC, when the Dorics arrived from Megara Hyblia and settled in this part of Sicily. The ambitious architecture was designed to highlight the wealth and power of the booming city of Selinus that was named after the wild celery that still grows there. In 409 BC, the Carthagians attacked the formerly friendly city of Selinus, although the reason for this remains a mystery. Mazara del Vallo, to the extreme west of the island, also has a long history. It was once a Phoenician harbour city and later fell while under the rule of Carthage. This ancient settlement was the first Sicilian town that was conquered by the Arabs after they landed at Cap Granitola in 827 AD. The Islamic monarchs created a flourishing economy here that continued right up until the Norman occupation. This is an atmospheric place, and one of the largest fishing ports in Italy that appears to again be dominated by North Africa. A huge fishing fleet brings in the catch each morning, around 1/5 of Italy's entire fishing requirement. It smells of diesel, salt, and fish. Nearby Marsala was also founded by the Phoenicians and was given its name by the Arabs, who called it Marsal Allah, God's harbour. The monumental city gate is a reminder of the landing of Giuseppe Garibaldi on the 8th of March 1860. The end of Bourbon rule and the beginning of the island's union with Italy. With his army of 1,000 redshirts, Garibaldi marched along the road from the harbour to the Baroque cathedral and its imposing tough stone facade. Its interior contains statues of various saints that were created by the Gaggini family of sculptors. From Marsala, a coastal road leads to Trapani, the Via del Sale, or Salt Road. Here, boats travel between a number of salt pools to the small island of San Pantaleo. Here, there are the remains of the Phoenician trading post of Motia that was destroyed by the Syracusan tyrant Dionysus. In the 19th century, the British Marsala wine merchant Joseph Whitaker excavated this site. Long summers, high temperatures and constant breezes have for many centuries assisted the harvesting of sea salt in this region. However, some of the salt workings here were closed at the end of the last century, and their windmills gradually fell into disrepair. But conservationists are now helping to protect this unique landscape. Today, around half of the original workings are operating once again, and many of the picturesque windmills have been restored. They work the water pumps and millstones that crush the great masses of salt. The Salina di Nubia contains a museum in which old tools, instruments, photos and models demonstrate the history of salt production. In March, during high tide, fresh seawater fills the pools. After evaporation, the remaining water is fed to lower pools. After around 3 months, the salt is harvested and piled high. It's then stored under bricks until the following spring. The Via del Sale ends in Trapani. The town extends into the sea like a long finger, and beyond the massive harbour front is the old Baroque town. palaces and civic houses indicate the former wealth of Trapani that, after Palermo and Messina, was for 100 years Sicily's main trading harbour. The wooden figures of the Passion Christi are stored within the cathedral. For centuries they have been carried through the streets at Easter time. Trapani has always been the island's gateway to Africa, the most important commercial centre in the west of Sicily. On a mountain summit, 750 metres above the Mediterranean, is Erice, the ancient town of Eryx. The well-fortified walls of its fortress once protected this, one of the oldest cities in Sicily. According to legend, the Trojan Aeneas, son of Aphrodite, established a town here after fleeing from the Greeks. Following the fall of Rome, the Byzantines and Arabs left their traces in Erice. However, these were later eradicated by the Normans. Located above the ruins of the ancient Acropolis, since the 12th century, this Norman fortress has commanded an extensive view of the surrounding landscape. The fortress' impressive tower can be seen from afar, an evocative image of a mysterious past. A few kilometres from here, the Elima founded the town of Segesta within these idyllic hills, a place of Greek culture and lifestyle. The town was constantly in dispute with Selinunte, until finally Syracuse took revenge and destroyed almost everything. Only the temple and the theatre remain. The Doric temple and its 36 pillars stand roofless beneath the open sky. Archaeologists are uncertain whether the sanctuary is unfinished or was designed to be like this. Of all Sicily's temples, this one most clearly epitomizes classical Greek temple architecture, even though it wasn't built by the Greeks. The descendants of the Trojans impressed the delegates of Athens so much that they sent 250 ships. However, they lost the battle. In the mountain area close to Palermo is the picturesque town of Monreale, a townscape that for more than 800 years has been dominated by a single building. Monreale Cathedral was built due to a struggle for power between the Bishop of Palermo and the Norman King William II. But the pride of this cathedral is its interior, not only due to its massive dimensions, but also to its unique architecture and ornate decoration. Christ Pancreator, the Almighty and Judge of the world. The impressive portrait dominates everything in this magnificent cathedral. Each corner of the cathedral has a story to tell, and the walls contain large and beautiful mosaics with well-known passages taken from the Bible. The best craftsmen and artists in Palermo were involved in the creation of this chapel. All this makes it quite amazing that the cathedral was constructed in only 8 years. However, the cloister of the Benedictine monastery on the southern side of the cathedral was most likely created by 5 master craftsmen who were originally from Provence. Even today, Monreale's cloister is almost completely intact and is considered to be one of the most perfect examples of Romanic sculpture in Sicily. Each of its 228 beautiful double marble columns was individually designed, a combination of sculptures and mosaics within the cathedral. Here, the architecture, paintings and sculptures have combined with Western European, Byzantine and Oriental influences to form a harmonious whole. This Norman cathedral and its adjacent cloister are 2 historical jewels that give a special significance to the small town of Monreale. Buildings proudly overlook their former rivals in the Sicilian metropolis of Palermo. Following the city's conquest by the Saracens, an ancient cathedral on this site was transformed into a Friday mosque and was later used for Christian ceremonies. It was here that monarchs were crowned and both emperors and kings were interred. A holy and historic place. The oriental splendor of the Norman court unites here with all the fragility of the last century, the destiny of an ancient harbor city. The Porta Nuova is a noble gate that leads into the old town. It was built to commemorate Emperor Karl V's successful campaign against the Moors. In the 8th century AD, the Phoenicians named this, their trading harbour on the northern coast of Sicily, the Flower. The Greeks later referred to it as All Harbour, and under Roman rule it was named Panormus. For several centuries, this Norman palace with its Cappella Palatina has been the island's political centre of power. Even today, it is the seat of the Sicilian government as well as the region's parliament. Its most prosperous years came when the Arabs conquered Sicily. The Islamic architects transformed the harbour city into a fairy tale from the 1001 Nights. The Castello dell'Aziza is the largest building of Arabian design in Palermo. In former times, it was a residence situated within a regal park that was used for the royal sport of hawking. In the subterranean vaults of a Capuchin monastery, the clothed, mummified bodies of monks are stored. Next to the Villa Giulia and close to the sea is a large botanical garden that was created in 1789. The Orto Botanico. An oasis of tranquility within the old town, once the privileged domain of the members of the royal court. Mighty medieval palaces demonstrate the self-confidence of the Sicilian nobility. And the Marionette Museum, close to the harbour, features a centuries-old tradition, Sicilian Marionette Theatre. Consisting of both an industrial and a yachting area, Palermo's new harbour is situated north of its historic counterpart. This is the meeting place of the elite. Lions carved from stone guard the entrance to the opera castle of the Teatro Massimo. famous operas were once performed in this magnificently renovated building. The Museo Archeologico is one of the most important archaeological museums in Europe and is contained within the monastery. A few kilometres from Palermo and set within a beautiful bay is Mondello, sheltered by the slopes of Monte Pellegrino that contains a grotto, an altar and a pilgrims' church, the Santuario Di Santa Rosalia. Here, this fascinating journey comes to an end. Sicily is exquisite, an ancient island of both discovery and pleasure.